Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. Today, we're gonna go through the entire physical TBR. I feel like it just keeps fluctuating in terms of the books that are on it, in terms of the size of the TBR, and so I thought we would just take a moment today to do a full inventory check, see what we're working with, and go from there. I feel like doing these full TBR checks once every couple of months, maybe every few months, are so helpful to, number one, remind me of what actually is on my physical TBR, and number two, it helps me reevaluate how my reading tastes have changed over time. I feel like my reading tastes kind of fluctuate depending on the season. I feel like certain things will always be true about me, like number one, I will always be a fantasy lover, and number two, I will always love books that make me feel very, very strong emotions, but kind of the mix of subgenres and everything within there, I feel like change per season. I am also going to take this opportunity today to maybe unhaul some of the books from my physical TBR. I obviously try and do my best to pick up books that I actually will read, whether it's now, whether it's in a few months, whether it's in a year or 2 years. I do make a point of, doing my best to read every single book I pick up, but sometimes the books I receive are out of my hands. Sometimes I do get books sent from publishers, other companies that I'm of course always so grateful for, but might not cater to my specific taste. So yeah, sometimes it's just useful to go through and clean things out a little bit. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And at the end of this video, we'll also get a final count of how many books are on my TBR. So we're going to do physical TBR as well as the Kobo TBR today to get the full picture. But let's just get started. Okay, let's just start going through books. I'm going to start with this pile right here because it's right in front of me. Number one is Liberty Street by Heather Marshall. This was sent to me by the publisher, and I'm actually so excited to read this one. I think this one is jumping straight up to my priority TBR because it is a historical fiction, but it's actually set in Toronto, which I think is really, really cool because obviously I live in Toronto. So this is set in 1961, and it actually revolves around an infamous women's prison that was in Toronto that was set in what we now know as Liberty Village. So for any of my Toronto locals watching this, you most probably know what Liberty Village is, but I had no idea that there used to be a women's prison there, and apparently there were a lot of weird, suspicious things that happened at this prison. There were a lot of women that were in there that shouldn't have been in there, and the treatment of them, I don't think, was very, very great. So yeah, I'm definitely really curious to dive into some Toronto history, and I've actually heard really good things about this book. I have some friends who live here that have read this book and have said it's actually really good. Like, not only is it interesting learning more about the city that we live in, but it's actually written very well. So yeah, that's Liberty Street. I'm so excited to read that one. That one's definitely staying. Next, The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. I have talked about this one a couple times. It's another historical fiction, but this one is set in New York and revolves around the Big Apple bomber. And we essentially follow two characters. One is a rockette who dances at the Radio City Hall, and the second is, I believe, a detective or something like that, some sort of an investigator, and we get down to the bottom of who this bomber is. So I'm definitely keeping that one as well. Second Chance Cinema by Thea Weiss is next. I need to get to this one. This is a magical realism kind of a story that is very literary. We essentially follow a couple who enter this theater that starts showing them memories of their lives and their relationship with one another. And after witnessing, going through this journey of their own histories, they, at the end, I think, come to this decision of whether or not they want to get married. So yeah, a deep dive into relationship and character, and I'm also excited to read that one. So that one's staying. Okay, this one's a newer addition to the TBR, Fishbone Cinderella by Elizabeth Lim. I did pick this one up as an add-on for my August book of the month. What month are we in? We're in August, right? Yeah, my August book of the month. So excited about this. I've heard amazing things. I have enjoyed Elizabeth Lim's writing in the past. She is the same author who wrote Six Crimson Cranes, which I absolutely adored, but this one is kind of a Cinderella retelling, but also mix in Asian mythology and Asian culture. And I found the way that she did this in Six Crimson Cranes to be so, so, so good. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I think it's like Cinderella, but instead of a glass slipper, it's a bracelet or something made out of fishbone. So yeah, I'm excited. That one's definitely staying. Okay, more magical realism, The Mashup by Laura Maria Myers. This is a magical realism romance where our protagonist enters a MASH game that she made as a child. And she has to figure out if she wants to stay in this life or, if she doesn't, how does she get back home? I don't know. Sounds like a lot of fun. Fallen City by Adrienne Young. I don't know why I've been putting this one off for so long. I do think this feels like a little bit of a colder weather read, so maybe that's why. But it's the start to, I believe, a fantasy duology, and I am curious to see how this one reads because I've never read an Adrienne Young high fantasy book before. I've only read her mystery magical realism book, so I'm curious to see how she world builds and how her really atmospheric writing translates into high fantasy. So that's staying. Okay, this one I also need to pick this one up very soon, but Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. I know the second book, is it called Turn Cloak or something like that, is coming out very soon, I think. Either in September or October, I want to say, but this one intrigues me because I did read Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen, who is indeed L.K. Stephen. They are the same person, and while Our Infinite Fates didn't ultimately work for me, I did really like her writing style. So I'm curious to see how this one is, and this one also is, yeah, just much more high fantasy than Our Infinite Fates was. So I'm curious to see how she does world building and high fantasy and all of that. But I think this magic system also sounds very interesting because it involves pain, I think. I think there's also something about a murder mystery, detectives, thieves, something. So yeah, definitely want to dive into that. I do have an Alice Feeney on the TBR, so Beautiful Ugly. I've read Rock, Paper, Scissors from her and also My Husband's Wife, and I think I've just been taking some time before I dive into this one because after reading My Husband's Wife, which was my first read from her, when I got to Rock, Paper, Scissors, it just didn't hit as hard because the progression of everything, the kind of elements and twists and everything felt very similar to how she structured My Husband's Wife, and so I feel like she's one of those thriller authors that you just need to take a little break from between reads so you stop seeing similarities with her plots and can actually enjoy her stories and wild fun twists. So this is a thriller. It's set on a remote Scottish island, and that's kind of all I want to know about this one. So that one's also staying. We actually haven't unhauled anything yet, which I think is actually good. It makes me feel good when the books on my physical TBR still excite me. But next up, Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hockhauser. I really want to get to this one too. I have heard such good things about this one, but this one, actually similar to Fishbone Cinderella, is another Cinderella reimagining, but this one is told through the stepmother's perspective, and I think it's supposed to open our eyes on what the stepmother went through and just give us an entirely new look on the story. So I'm excited about this one. I think Cinderella in this one is actually a little bit of a brat, which I think will be very interesting to read. But yeah, this one just seems kind of gothic, very fall winter vibes. So I'm excited to get into this one. Okay, Kingdom of Claw by Demi Winters. You guys know this one is staying. This is the second book to the Ashen series. So the first book is The Road of Bones. It's a Viking romantasy. I've been so hot and cold with romantasies lately, but this one was hot for me. Like, it was so good. I'm excited. I've heard this one also takes a little bit more of a high fantasy turn, and I've heard that the books just keep getting better as they go. So she's definitely staying. Next is another thriller. It's Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. This was actually a rec from Freya, so thanks, Freya. This one, I believe, tells the story of Ted Bundy and his trial, but it's told through the perspective of a survivor. Set in 1978, and I probably shouldn't have even said his name because I'm pretty sure from what Freya said about this book is that the killer is never actually mentioned by name, so this book really highlights the stories of the victims and the survivor that we're following. I've heard really good things about this book. I've heard it's like the type of book that will just make you feel like you need to stare at the wall for a very long time after reading it. So yeah, definitely curious about that one. Next up, another one that the publisher sent me, but Time Travel for Beginners by Jacqueline Moriarty, who, fun fact, is indeed Leanne Moriarty's sister. I also have actually not read a Leanne Moriarty in my life, but maybe Jacqueline Moriarty will be my first Moriarty sister book that I do end up reading because I have it. But this one is a contemporary fiction, I'm pretty sure, but we're set in a coffee shop that also doubles as a time travel agency. So we follow three characters. characters. One of them, a single mother Anna, is offered a job at the agency. Another one, Teddy, is a customer hoping to untangle his recently imploded marriage. And then we have Jade, who has a deeply buried secret, and she despises the agency for offering false hope. So 3 characters coming into this agency with very different views on it and the idea of time travel and kind of how much they believe that the time travel is real. So sounds good. I think it's one of those stories that is happy but sad. Like, it's sad, but it'll make you feel good in the end. And I'm definitely very curious about it. So that one's also a keep. Okay, this one's a chunker. The Poison Daughter by Sheila Masterson. This is another recent add-on to the physical TBR that I picked up with Book of the Month. And I'm excited to read it, but I'm also a little bit hesitant, and I will tell you why. So this is a romantasy, but what drew me into it is that our character is a poison maiden. And do you remember last fall? I think I mentioned this in so many videos in that season last year, where I was like, I want to read books with poison and poison maidens and all of that. I just love that vibe. For whatever reason, it really, really entices me. So when I saw that this book was about a poison maiden, I was like, yes, count me in. I'm excited. I'm gonna try it out. So yeah, this one follows a poison maiden, but the one person that her kiss, like her poison, cannot kill ends up being the person that she is forced into marriage with. So that sounds very, very juicy and exciting. What I'm a little hesitant about though is that I have heard that this one is a little bit dark romancy, and I've heard that it is kind of extremely very spicy. So I'm not entirely sure how all that will go, but in terms of the story itself, I'm hoping that the elements of the poison and the poison maiden will make this book for me. So that's Poison Daughter. If you've read this one, let me know, and let me know how spicy it actually is, and let me know how dark romancy it actually is. Okay, last one in this first pile. Oh my gosh, we're still only on the first pile out of 5. And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. This is a fun little contemporary romance about 2 characters who are like rival meteorologists, and they're hired to follow a storm. So sounds like we've got some cold weather forced proximity in this, and yeah, it's definitely a winter romance, so I've just been saving this for when it snows. But that's a keep. Okay, shall we do this pile? Let's do this pile. The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson, obviously going to continue with my Cosmere adventure. And that one sounds very exciting because we're set on a planet that if you stay still for too long, you die, like you burn. So you have to keep physically moving, which I think will make for a very, very exciting, fast-paced read. These Infinite Threads by Tahera Mafi, the second book to this Woven Kingdom. So definitely keeping this. I loved that first book. I love the writing style that Tahera Mafi adopted in this series. It feels very classic romance. Everything is so melodramatic. It's just so fun to read. Okay, The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino. I think everyone kind of knows what this one is about. We have a lady knight and her apprentice, her mage, and it's a romantasy that I believe is a standalone, but it's an interconnected standalone fantasy series, which I think sounds like a fun idea because usually we see interconnected standalones more for contemporary romance, but I think it's kind of fun that V.L. Bovalino is doing interconnected standalone, but in fantasy romance. So yeah, have heard good things about this one. I think I've also just been saving that one for the colder months. Okay, this one's a new edition, The Girl with a Thousand Faces by Sunyi Dean. This one was just very recently sent to me by the lovely Penny. So Penny, if you're watching, thank you so much for sending this to me. I'm so curious about it. This one is set in Hong Kong. I think it's a mix between horror and fantasy, and we have a lot to do with ghosts and spirits and history and culture. So I'm very, very excited to get into this one. Definitely a good spooky season read. I have The Ocean Would Paint Me Blue by Zulfa Katu. This is the same author who wrote As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. I love, love, love Zulfa Katu's writing. It's so poetic and artistic, and the way she combines kind of these art terms with describing real world situations is absolutely beautiful. So I'm excited to read that one as well. Okay, Dune by Frank Herbert, definitely staying. We need to get to this at some point. How can I call myself a fantasy sci-fi reader if I haven't read Dune yet? I have An Arcane Study of Stars by Sydney J. Shields. This one really enticed me because the comp title to it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. We have an academy setting, we have a deal with a devil type of a character, we have a murder mystery, and I think a history at the school of witches mysteriously disappearing or mysteriously being murdered. So yeah, definitely excited to get to this one as well. Also another kind of September-y, October-y feeling read, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I picked this one up at a yard sale and it was actually 50 cents. Which is a find that I will be bragging about forever. I feel like that is such a good deal. I love finding things in yard sales, used bookstores, little free libraries, all of that. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. It's a story that chronicles the friendship between these two characters over a long span of time, I believe. So that's a keep. Okay, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I feel so intimidated about this one because it's just one of those staple names in fantasy on one hand, but it's also an unfinished series. But the lovely Katie did send this one to me, so again, thank you, Katie. I will get to this one soon. Probably sometime this winter. Let's say maybe November, December, maybe even January. Next up, Julie Chan is Dead by Leanne Zhang. This one's kind of a yellow facey read, I want to say. So kind of that satire, fiction, thriller blend. This one follows Julie and she has a twin sister who is this very popular influencer, but her twin sister actually dies and Julie, in a very unhinged series of moments, decisions, decides to take her twin sister's place. So now instead of her sister being dead, she rewrites the narrative of her dying, like Julie is dead, and she just takes the life of her sister. Yeah, sounds very unhinged. Definitely need to get to that one soon. That's a keep. Okay, These Immortal Truths by Rachel Rada. This one also has a comp to Addie LaRue. It's actually a duology and it has all of those elements of making a deal with the devil, a long-lived life, you get immortality and all of that, but at what cost? So I'm excited to read this one as well. Okay, Harbor of Hungry Ghosts by Eliza Chan is definitely one that intrigues me as well. Also sent to me by the publisher, but this one is set in Hong Kong in the Opium War era, but add in demons, add in demon hunters, and add a little bit of a biting sense of humor. Definitely intrigued. Another publisher sent book. This is The Lure of Wolves and Whispers by Amanda Connolly. This one is a romantasy, the start to some sort of a series. I don't know how long, but the comps are One Dark Window and Fourth Wing. It is a romantasy. This one I'm actually on the border. I'm on the fence of if I want to keep this and read it or not. I'm thinking maybe unhaul it. The biggest draw in for me for this one is that I think there are wolves involved and I do love a fantasy with a magical creature. Not that wolves themselves are magical, but I feel like in this context there probably is some sort of a magical mystical tie-in or twist with the wolves, but I don't know, I just, as I've been saying, haven't really been drawn to romantasy unless it really feels like it's catered to me, you know what I mean? And I feel like there aren't too many things drawing me to this book. So yeah, this one was sent to me by the publisher, but I might have to unhaul this one. So this will be the first one in today's unhaul pile. All right, there we go. Next up, Never Ever After by Su Lin Tan. This one's another fairy tale reimagining, and it's actually another Cinderella inspired reimagining. So I guess this is the year of Cinderella retellings, but this is another, yes, Cinderella retelling, mix in Asian mythology, Asian culture, and I do like Su Lin Tan's writing. I think her Daughter of the Moon Goddess duology ended up feeling a little bit too silly love triangle for me and a little bit too young reading. It's a YA series, but it felt a little bit too middle grade for me, honestly, but I'm curious to see what this one is about. I have heard some good things, and yeah, I think her writing is just absolutely beautiful. It feels mythical, it feels whimsical, and so this one is going to be a keep. All right, The Matchmaker's Cottage by Kat Sloan. Another publisher sent one. I'm always on the fence if I want to keep these romance books or not because romance has really not been hitting for me, like contemporary romance. I've actually been noticing that for the most part, contemporary romances have only been hitting for me recently if they tie in some sort of a really, really creative spin on it, whether it's a magical realism twist, whether the protagonist is going through something just very, very unique, or if there's a bit more of a literary twist to it. Things like Into the Blue, I really, really enjoyed. You know what I mean? So this one's borderline if I want to keep or not, but our protagonist in this one essentially owns a really cozy B&B, like a bed and breakfast, and the love interest gets this idea of this celebrity matchmaking business, but he needs to host it at her bed and breakfast. So I think it's second chance, forced proximity, those kinds of tropes. You know what, maybe I think I'll keep this one. It definitely feels like an autumnal read, so I'm gonna keep this one, see if I pick it up this fall, and if I don't, then I'll unhaul it, but I'll keep it for the season. Next, A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This one's a keep. I really want to read more T. Kingfisher. I've only read one book from her so far, so yeah, this one is a keep, and I actually do want to grab the Baldur's Gate 3 book that is coming out very soon too, the Asterion one. Okay, The Foxwife by Yangtze Chu. This one is a cold weather fantasy for sure. We have a bit of a murder mystery happening set in the last years of the Qing Empire, and in this book we have these foxes, but they're spirits, like they're magical foxes, and they actually have the power to transform and disguise themselves as beautiful women or men, and they lure people to their deaths. So very cold weather, sounds very mysterious. Definitely want to read this one, but I have been saving it for when it snows. I think we have another unhaul on our hands. Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. This one, I think it's another second chance romance. We follow a firefighter, that's our love interest, and our protagonist. Who is she? What does this say? I don't know, doesn't really say much. I don't know, as I've mentioned, contempt romance has really only been hitting for me if it really draws me in from a really creative premise, and I feel like this premise doesn't feel that creative to me, so I think I'm gonna unhaul that one. Okay, I'm not gonna unhaul this one though. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan is the start to a fantasy duology, and I honestly don't want to know anything about this one. I want to dive into this one blind. I do believe we follow a character who kind of lives in her brother's footsteps. Like, she has a brother who always kind of has better opportunities than her, but maybe do we have kind of a Mulan twist to this one? I'm trying to recall what I know about this book. I think there is some sort of an element in here where she takes her brother's identity or name to kind of go off and have her own growth and journey and everything, but I've heard such good things about this book, so that's a keep for sure. Not my books just falling over. Okay, also a keep, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, kind of a magical realism book where in this version of the world, you know when your last day is going to be, like you know when your death day is going to be. I think it's all through some sort of an app, but we follow two characters who find out that this will be their last day of their lives. And so they end up spending their last day with one another and just bonding with the stranger over the fact that you're both going to be dead in the next 24 hours. So I've heard, yeah, just really good things about that one. I think it has the potential to be really reflective, really introspective, so excited. How many times have I said excited in this video? Too many times. But next is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a fantasy standalone, and I've heard really good things about this one too. I have been saving this for the fall, kind of like academia season, because we are set in this great Ostermere's library, and we follow a character who spends a lot of time in this library but is accused of some sort of a treason and goes on this whole quest to figure out who actually committed this crime or whatever happens in this book. But yeah, that's a keep for sure. I also have A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabeau. This was sent to me by the lovely Natalie, and I'm really excited to dive into that one, but I'm also waiting for the winter because I don't know, there's winter in the title. Legend by Marie Lu, classic dystopian YA series, and I absolutely love Marie Lu, so that's for sure a keep. Oh, I need to pick this one up. Kin by Tayari Jones. This is a story set in Louisiana, I'm pretty sure. We follow two motherless daughters who have been best friends and neighbors since early childhood, but they're fated to live starkly different lives. One of them has been raised by a fierce aunt who was determined to give her a stable home after her mother's death. And then the other one, Annie, has been abandoned by her mother and is really fixated on the idea of finding her mother. So it says it's a novel about mothers and daughters, friendship and sisterhood, and the complexities of being a woman in the American South. I've heard really wonderful things about this contemporary fiction, so that's definitely a keep. Oh my goodness. Also, this one, The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. This one's a historical fiction set in 1950s Tehran, and it's just another one that I think will be a really emotional, really insightful and deep read. It actually won the Lolly Award with Book of the Month in 2024, and I have the Lolly edition to it, which is really really fun. But yeah, I will need to pick that one up. Okay, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. How cute is this edition? I feel like it's so precious and beautiful. I have been waiting to read this one. I want to time it for when the new Sense and Sensibility film adaptation comes out so I can do kind of a read plus a watch. So this will probably happen soon. I think the adaptation comes out in October. So we're keeping this one on the TBR. Once Again, Always by Amanda Gale. See, this is the perfect example of a contemporary romance that I do actually feel like I want to read because this one has the amnesia trope in it. And you all know how I love when a character forgets things. So we kind of have the classic setup of one of the characters waking up with a head injury and amnesia, and she can't remember her partner and how they came to be. And so we take this journey of trying to remember or trying to forge a new bond, forge new memories, and yeah, can't wait for that one. I hope it makes me feel emotional. All right, Wintervale by Ava Reid, a dystopian. I believe it's a standalone, but we're set at a spy academy, and we follow 4 characters who enter as students, and they try to become the next generation of elite assets in a Cold War that has dragged on for nearly a century. That one's a keep. All right, we're getting down to the last few piles. I have To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. This is another dystopian, actually. Another one I kind of want to go into a little bit blind. All I know is it's, yeah, dystopian romance. It's the start to a series, I believe, but that one's a keep. Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, first book in the Last Hours series. Yeah, I need to pick this one up. It's kind of, it seems like almost a direct continuation from the Infernal Devices, so I'm curious to see how that one's going to read. Oh my goodness, I'm kind of ashamed that this one is still on my physical TBR. The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. I think I've had this for 2 to 3 years. I actually put this one on my summer seasonal TBR, either last year or the year before, and I never ended up getting to it, and then so the year after that I put it on my summer TBR again, and I still didn't get to it. So the question is, do I give up on this one or do I let it sit on my TBR cart for longer? I do really enjoy TJ Klune writing, and I do think this premise sounds fun. It's set in 1995, and we're in this family summer cabin set in Washington, Oregon, somewhere around that. But then we find these characters who have these kind of extraordinary powers. So it's a little bit of a sci-fi feeling story, and I don't know, I just feel like the vibes of this feel really interesting. So you know what? We're gonna keep. We're gonna keep it, and hopefully we get to it soon. Okay, I have The First Step by Tao Wong. This was actually sent to me by a combination of the author himself and the publisher. It was kind of through both of them. But this one is interesting. It's a lit RPG, but I think takes a bit more of a serious tone than something like Dungeon Crawler Carl. And so I'm curious to see how lit RPG will translate into more of a serious writing style. The funny thing is, Matt Dinniman actually blurbed this book. There is actually Matt Dinniman endorsement on the back of this. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this one's gonna be like. I don't think it's a book that I'm itching to pick up immediately, but I am curious enough to keep this. That one is staying. I have Honeysuckle by Bar Friedman Tell. This is another one I've been waiting for spooky season to read because this one says it's part Wuthering Heights, part Frankenstein. So we have a character, I think, who is a child and kind of made up this imaginary friend, but it's made from flowers and magic. So it's an imaginary playmate, but make it actually a real playmate through magic. This book is loosely based on Welsh mythology, and it says it's perfect for readers of V.E. Schwab. So yeah, I've just been keeping this one in anticipation of spooky fall season. The Legend of the Nine-Tailed Fox by Katrina Kwan. I was really excited when the publisher first gifted me this book because I do love an Asian mythological retelling, like as you can see from so many books on my TBR. But what I have heard about this book ever since its release is that it is quite YA, almost like middle grade level in the way it reads. So I'm just now unsure if this book will be for me in the end. So you know what? I'm kind of sad about it, but I might unhaul this one just because I feel like it might read a little bit too young for me, and I really haven't been enjoying middle grade feeling books lately. Okay, Across the Vanishing Sky by Catherine Cowles. I might unhaul this one as well. It's a romance. I think there's a bit of a mystery twist to it, and honestly, I think I have heard some pretty good things about this author and this book in general, but I don't know, I don't really feel like picking this one up. It was sent to me by the publisher, I think several months ago. I'm gonna put this in the unhaul pile. Okay, don't freak out when I say this. I'm gonna unhaul The Count of Monte Cristo, but it's only because this is not the edition of the book that I want to read. This one is the Oxford Classic Edition, which I should have done more research, honestly, before I bought this one. That is completely my mistake, and I feel so bad about it because I did use a gift card to buy this book, but I do want to read the Penguin version, the Robin Buss translation. It's such an iconic classic that I want to read the best version that exists of it, and it does feel like just general consensus is that the Penguin version of this classic is the best translated version, and the Oxford doesn't read as well. It's not as accessible. It's just a little bit more dense, I think, and I do feel very drawn to read the Robin Buss translation over this one. So I'm gonna unhaul this, but hopefully soon I can pick up the correct edition of this story that I want to read, because I do want to read it like this fall or winter, but not that edition. Okay, It's Different This Time by Joss Richard, a cozy fall romance. I'm gonna keep this one because if there's something about contemporary romance, I do tend to enjoy them more during the cozy fall season and when they really have a cozy fall vibe. So that one's going to be a keep. Next is The Witch Below the Dreaming Wood by H.G. Perry. This is the same author who wrote The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door, which I read earlier this year in January and absolutely loved. But this one follows a similar genre where it's historical fiction, but add a little bit of magic to it. So this one is set in Wales, 1941, during the Second World War, but we kind of have a King Arthur fantasy reimagining of it. So we have characters that start seeing dragons in the skies and things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to read this one because I really, really loved The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door. So that one's a keep. Okay, The Bane Witch by Ava Morgan. This is an art copy and it says on sale March 2025. So I definitely have had this on the TBR for over a year, but this is Gone Girl meets witches. And so I have been saving this one for a fall read, obviously. Oh my goodness. We have so many books to prioritize this fall. I feel like so many books that we've gone through today, I've just been like, I'm saving this one to read in the fall or the colder season or like academia season or witchy season. I don't know. We have a lot of reading to do in the upcoming months. Okay, this is First and Forever by Lynn Painter, and I think this has to be an unhaul. Another one that the publisher sent to me, but it's YA sports romance, which is just something that I'm really not drawn to at this moment in time, so that's gonna be an unhaul. This is probably gonna be another unhaul. Extracurricular by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is... what is this? A former pop star enrolls in a college. The last thing she expects is A+ chemistry with her psychology professor. Oh, it's student teacher romance. Yeah, that's gonna be an unhaul. I think this was sent to me by the publisher as well, but definitely doesn't really sound up my alley. Oh, I need to read this one. Simple Heart by Cho Hae-jin. I think this one was comped to Pachinko. But yeah, we follow Esther, and she grew up in a Korean orphanage before she was adopted by a French couple, and I think we follow her story as she becomes a mother herself, and as she becomes a mother starts really reflecting on her life of being adopted, of also being a child who was abandoned at a young age in Korea, in Seoul, and I really want to read this one. It does have deckled edges, which is such a surface level thing for me to be annoyed at, but I don't like deckled edges. It makes it so hard to turn a page, but we will persevere and I will read this one. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, definitely one that I've been saving for witch season for very obvious reasons, but yeah, that one's going to stay. This one was sent to me by the publisher as well because I think this is a new kind of like redesigned cover edition. Okay, I have Cinder by Marissa Meyer next. This is an entire series of fairy tale retellings, but set in space and make it kind of fantasy sci-fi, which I think is a fun idea. But this, along with the entire box set of the entire series, was sent to me by the lovely Meredith. So Meredith, Thank you so much. This one's gonna stay on the TBR. I actually have heard a lot about Marissa Meyer and her writing. I think there's another series that she's also very, very well known for, and she is definitely an author that I want to try out. So this one is also going to stay. I've heard really, really good things about this entire series. And last one in this second last pile is Behind Five Willows by June Her, an author I've wanted to try for multiple reasons. Number one, because she is Asian, and number two, because she's actually local to Toronto or GTA, kind of around this area. And then also, okay, number three, third reason, this book is advertised as Pride and Prejudice, but make it Korean, which does entice me. So yeah, this is historical romance, Pride and Prejudice vibes, but add Korean culture into there. So that one's a keep, Behind Five Willows. Okay, those are all kind of the main TBR books, and then this last pile is actually my collection of series to continue, but I can't get to them yet before I like read the book before it in the series. So these books I don't actually keep on the TBR cart until they're ready to be read. So to rapid fire these ones, All This Twisted Glory by Tahereh Mafi, I have to read, where is it? These Infinite Threads before getting to this one, so that will join the cart after I've read the pink book. We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. I haven't read Bunny yet, but Simon & Schuster sent this to me when it released. So I need to read Bunny first and then I will get to that one. I have, where are the other ones that belong with this? Okay, we'll do these ones first. The rest of the Cinder box set that I mentioned that Meredith sent me. So those will join the TBR in the order as we get through them. I have Saint by Adrienne Young. This one's technically a standalone, but it's kind of interconnected with another duology by Adrienne Young, where I think the first book is called Fable. And so the publisher sent me this book, but I can't read it until I've read the original duology yet. So this one is also waiting. I have 2 copies of The First Stop by Tao Wong, which is the second book to that lit RPG that I showed you a little bit ago, so I can't read this one yet. Why do I have 2 copies? It's because the publisher sent me both of them. They sent me an art copy, and then they also sent me this finished hardcover copy. So yeah, I've just been waiting to read it, and I was going to unhaul one of these copies when the time came, but I did receive these ones before this book actually released, so I was just waiting for the actual release date to unhaul one of them. So you know what, let's do it now. I'm gonna keep the finished copy and I'll unhaul this kind of like unfinished ARC copy of it. These Godly Lies by Rachel Rada. This is the second book to the Immortal Truths right here, so waiting to read that one before this. I have The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen, which is actually a book that I picked up in a book swap because it was kind of the only book there that I felt drawn towards a little bit, but this is the second book, I think, to the Bridge Kingdom series, and I don't have the first book. So yeah, this one's just kind of waiting in limbo for that. And then, okay, here are the other ones. I have the rest of the books in that Legend series by Marie Lu. And that is the entire physical TBR. Now to quickly go over the Kobo TBR, we're just gonna rapid fire these. We're just gonna quickly list them out. So I do have arcs of Scion by James Islington, also Peck and Peck by Bonnie Garmis on here, which I'm so excited to read both of those. I have Minbok by Ella Lee, which I've heard really, really good things about. It's a Korean literary fiction, I'm pretty sure. I also have This Changes Everything by Danielle McKechnie, which I think is a romancy read sent to me by the publisher as well. I have Destiny's Edge by ML Wong, which I need to get to. This was her free book that she just released to everyone who subscribes to her newsletter. The Thoroughbreds by Ellen Hildebrand, which I want to get to. It's the second book to the Academy series. I have Chosen Son on here actually by Adrienne Young, which was also, a lot of these ebooks were sent to me by the publisher because a lot of them opt in to send arcs or EPUB versions of the books over physical copies. So I do have Chosen Son ready to read, but I do need to read Fallen City first because it's the sequel to that. And I think those are all, yeah, that's the entire Kobo TBR at the time. So not too many actually on there, but okay, we did it. We went through the entire physical TBR. I feel like that was a huge endeavor. I will count up all of these books and put the numbers of them up on the screen. And just as a reminder, this is the unhaul pile that I decided on. All right, we did it, you guys. That is the entire physical TBR. So I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below. Let me know which of the books on this physical TBR you would like to see me read first. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!